All right. Hello, everyone. Attorney Lee Marvin here, and um, welcome to our Fiance and Spouse Green Card webinar. We're very happy to have you here. See a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar names as people are popping in here. Um, we're going to get started here in a second. A lot of good content that we're planning on having here today. This might not be everything that you need, but this is a heck of a good start. Okay, it gives you a good idea. Um, Basically, the difference between the fiance visa and the spouse visa, and some of the different aspects of the visa. So the first visa that I'm going to talk about today is the fiance visa. Um, so I'm still admitting people into the webinar. Um, as people have questions, we have the chat feature. I don't know how many people have used Zoom before, but there is a chat feature where questions can be asked. Um, Everybody is automatically muted just in case a dog runs in the room, starts barking. We don't have to worry about it. Okay. So, but there is the ability to type questions. There is a section where I'm going to specifically invite questions. Um, but if you get your questions in there and I can get to it when it's time, that'll work too. So we're just going to kind of go with it. Let's see, I'm admitting. So technology is always fun, so there's always a little hiccup. I think we got it figured out. Um, there's a lot of shy people, Senor Juan, welcome. I can actually see you, which is nice. Adriel, mucho gusto, welcome. So we really would like to have all the cameras on, but I don't push people into doing things that they're not comfortable with. So if you're not comfortable with a camera, that's fine. But we're just going to get started. Sometimes it's hard to see if people are actually around or if they're robots, but I guess it doesn't matter. We'll move on. And as we have questions, like I said, the chat feature is how you can put your questions into the group or really to me, and I will respond to it as it's appropriate. So the first, like I said, the first visa we're going to talk about is the fiancé visa, okay? And there's 4 different parts to the fiancé visa. Basically, what are the requirements of the K-1 visa? How long does it take to get the visa? What are the real costs of the visa? And then common questions people ask when they have visas or when they're trying to go through this process. And I tell you, I love seeing cute little kids. So thank you for having your child with you there. Um, it makes things that much more enjoyable to know why we're doing what we do. For the most part, is for family, right? I mean, that's what this is all about. So having family involved, um, supporting, not just being the sponsor, but being part of the process. A lot of people end up having different family members involved in the process. It just makes it worthwhile. Okay. So let me start. Okay. This is booked for half an hour. Okay. Um, we have slightly longer than that, but we're keeping it at a half an hour because otherwise, um, we'll lose time quickly, which is why I'm trying to limit when we do the questions. I do want to answer the questions because to me, that's the most important part. But I want to get through these slides, my slides. I didn't put slides up intentionally for you guys because nobody wants to read slides. Right, Victor? But if you have questions, you want me to slow down or anything, just the chat. The chat is how you do it. Um, so let me get started here. So what are the requirements of a K-1 visa? Okay, K-1, AKA, also known as the fiancé visa. So some things that people don't realize that the fiancé visa is only allowed for US citizens, okay? So you have to be a US citizen in order to apply for a fiancé visa to have your loved one brought into the United States. So that's the first requirement, US citizenship of the sponsor. Then you have to prove a bona fide relationship, means genuine, a genuine relationship between the sponsor, US citizen, and the fiance, okay? There's a lot of different ways to do that, but without proving to the government that it is a real legitimate fiancé relationship, because the purpose is to get married, right? So that's the third part, to prove your intent to get married within 90 days. Fiancé visas, if you don't already know, fiancé visas are also known as the 90-day visas. There's that program, I think on ABC does the 90-day visa. What it is you are allowed to enter the United States for the purpose of getting married. And you've got to do that within the first 90 days of entering the country. If you don't, then all bets are off. Your visa is invalidated and you no longer have the legal authority to remain in the United States. So the point of this, again, is to prove your intent to get married within 90 days. So the fiancé visa, you're showing that relationship, you're showing the intent to get married within the 90 days, okay? So those are the basic requirements of the fiancé visa. There's also additional requirements, which are, there's always the income. Anytime you're dealing with immigration, you're having to show that the sponsor has the legal ability to support the person that they're trying to bring into the United States, okay? So they always ask information about income, okay? So usually tax returns is how we do that. There's other ways of doing it, but tax returns are the easiest. So for a fiancé visa, they're looking at your last year, the last year of your income taxes. And it's the adjusted gross income on the most recent tax return. It must be equal to or greater than what they say 100% of the federal poverty guidelines. So that level, and again, it's a sliding scale depending on where you live, but for the most part, it's like, less than $19,000 a year, right? For one person. If you have additional family members that are dependents, well, that changes, okay? So it's 100% of the poverty guidelines for the person sponsoring an immigrant plus all your dependents, okay? So it is a bit technical, but it's easy to figure out if you know how to do it, and luckily I do, okay? So another requirement is, we have a lot of people that are older and looking at their second life with someone new, okay? So usually that means that there might be a prior relationship, either for the sponsor or for the fiancé. So a big thing that is required is proving that there's been a termination of the prior relationship for the sponsor or for the fiancé. You've got to prove to the government that there's no one else around, okay? Again, fiancé visas are have a heavy history of fraud, so the government is very strict about it. So they need proof that the relationship is terminated. If that's a divorce, easy enough. If it's death, unfortunately, easy enough too. Annulments, things like that, you've got to prove to the government that the prior relationship is no longer valid, doesn't exist anymore, okay? Hello, people that are joining us again. I'm attorney Lee Marvin, and a lot of you are either familiar by name or by your face. So thank you. If you like showing your face and it's like a real discussion here, cameras are great to turn on if you can. If not, hey, I'm not going to hold that against you. It makes it more interesting, but whatever you're comfortable with. So I started out talking about the fiancé visa requirements, okay? I'm not going to go over what I talked about again, but basically you have to prove to the government certain things, that you have a relationship that is eligible to be to get a fiancé into the country to get married. Your intention is to do that, and you come to the United States, you get married, and you immediately apply for the green card. That's the part that a lot of people kind of skip. It's kind of weird because the whole point of all this stuff is to get a green card for your loved one. So entering, doing it the right way in the right time, and immediately applying for the green card is what this is all about, okay? So the timeline. So typically, fiancé visa timeline, it takes about 10 to 12 months, okay? There's two different parts to the process. One is USCIS. So it's applying for USCIS to vet the relationship so that they basically accept what you're saying, that you have somebody that you want to sponsor to come into the United States for purposes of getting married. It usually takes them about I say up to 12 months for them to do that review. After that's done, what they do is they give an approval and they say, hey, okay, yeah, we believe you, you're a US citizen, and the person you're wanting to sponsor and bring in the country, we believe that you have a legitimate bona fide relationship. You're approved. Okay, then that approval goes to the next stage, which is the State Department, basically the embassy. We've got to we've got to satisfy the embassy's requirements. Okay, they have an application process, and they have different requirements as far as paperwork and credentials that we need to convince them of before they will actually give the entry visa to come into the United States. Okay, so again, USCIS, it's about 12 months. The embassy part is between 2 and 5 months. It really depends what country the person is in. Thankfully, things are back on track as far as COVID, because it was like years, right? It was a couple years that they are posting times for processing. Now it's closer to 2 to 5 months is what it's taken us these days. Um, and we just have to make sure that we keep moving it forward. There's a point in time where the government will eventually lose interest and they will close the case. So it's all about moving forward as soon as you can and not stopping until you get what you want, right? Which is the fiancé visa. So total processing time is between 12 months and 15 months, okay? Um, so there's little hiccups that come along the way. There's regional things, there's local things with the embassies, depending on the country, that come up. Too many things to talk about here. We basically deal with things as they come along, which again is why I recommend people hire someone to do it, an attorney to do it. I've been doing this for, I mean, over 10 years. There's little things that come up, and being able to respond to them as soon as possible, and even knowing what the government is asking is kind of a trick sometimes. So that's why we put on this webinar, so people are aware of what this process is and where you can go to get help, because it's all about getting the right help at the right time. So that's what it is. So price, the cost for a fiancé visa, it's mostly the government fees, okay? The fees are around $535 currently. Their program are scheduled to change in April. The government unveiled all their new pricing that they're doing, and virtually everything is going up in price. Some of them not by much. It was a proposal. They haven't actually officially accepted the proposal yet, so I don't know what the prices are going to be yet, but they're scheduled to increase in price, okay? Currently, $535 is what gets the party started. That's the first application with immigration, and how you get started having them review your request, okay? There's embassy fees on top of that. When you do your interview, the embassies always charge a fee in local currency. If that's in Ciudad Juarez, I think that they actually accept American dollars in Ciudad Juarez, but there's other countries, the Philippines, India, is local currency, okay? All that information comes out as we move forward. The embassies have their own information that they provide to you when we get to that point. So all that information we can tweak as we move on. This process, it's like going to the grocery store. You go to the grocery store, you see this and this and this and this and this, and you get at the checkout and you're like, holy cow, this is not what I thought this was going to be about. But you end up leaving happy because you got all your groceries. So that's the thing with fiancé visas. And a lot of times when you deal with the embassies, you don't necessarily know what to expect when you start, and you just have to adapt as you move forward. And that's what I've been doing for 10 years or more. So that is what I will do for anyone that needs help, okay? Additional costs with it. So it's not just the filing fee, it's not just the interview fee. There's additional costs such as medical examinations, thing called a police clearance letter, if you guys have ever heard of that. So if you live in a country over the age of 16 for more than 6 months at a time, you have to provide proof that you haven't committed crimes in that country. I had a client, no lie, it was 8 police clearance letters we had to get. She was a flight attendant, so she lived in a lot of countries. So those are additional expenses, okay? So it depends on who the people are. There's also, let me see if there's any questions. 1 second here. Okay. There's also, There's also things like passport pictures, copies of birth certificates, translations. There's always a requirement to have an English translation, regardless of where you come from. Interview fees, other official documents, it depends. So we adapt as we go because there's different things sometimes that are asked by immigration. And those things usually include some sort of fee to process, okay? So that's the deal. We adapt as we move forward. So common questions. And again, let me see here. I'm going down to the chat to see if there's any questions that I should answer right now. Okay. Right. Okay. So let me just answer this question. Jessica asked, police clearance letters, is that needed if you're applying, but the person is already in the US? Absolutely. Any adult anyone over the age of 16 who has lived in another country for more than 6 months is required to do it. If you've been in the United States for 15, 20 years, you still have to do it. So it can be challenging to get that information. We help clients figure out how to do it, but yes, Jessica, it absolutely is required. Okay, let me see what else. For the spouse green card application, we're going to get to the spouse green card in a second, okay? Is it right to get a K-1 visa before marriage? That's also the nature of this call, is to tell you the difference in the processes and to give recommendations about what process is most appropriate. How do you prove a bona fide relationship, Jessica? There's a lot to that. I could do an entire seminar on that, which as we move forward in the process, I will be doing that because there's a lot of things. Basically, anything common sense wise, you think, okay, this shows that we're in a relationship together. Social media, yeah, that's there. Children, yes. Bills, accounts, taxes, things like that. And again, some of this stuff is more appropriate to the spouse visa than the fiancé visa. Many times fiancés are not. I'm looking at the other comments that I have here. Sometimes fiancés are never in the United States until they move forward with this process. Let me go back to here. I don't know what happened. Technical issue. So since we're getting questions that are appropriate to that visa, to the spouse visa, let's go to the spouse visa, okay? What is a spouse visa? Spouse visa is also known as a green card, okay? It's a green card for someone who's already married. Their spouse lives overseas. So you go through the green card process, AKA spouse visa, for the person living outside the United States in order to enter the country with a green card, with legal permanent residency. You do the interview and you enter as a legal resident, okay? So let's see here. So again, what are the requirements of the spouse visa? Okay, proof of a sponsor's valid U.S. citizenship or legal permanent residency. Unlike the fiancé visa, spouse visas can be gotten by a legal permanent resident. So you can be a legal permanent resident and sponsor your significant other, but you can't do that as a fiancé, okay, under the fiancé process. So if you are a legal resident or a citizen, you can sponsor your significant other, okay? Let's see. Proof of a valid marriage. So if you're already married, you're doing the spouse visa, the green card, you have to have proof of a valid marriage. If you need a translation of that document from a foreign country, that's a part of it too. Proof of a bona fide marital relationship, very similar to that to the fiancé visa. You have to show that you are in a legitimate relationship. It's more strict for a spouse visa because you're already showing that you're married. So bona fide marital relationship. Again, kids, cohabitating. If the sponsor also lives in another country, those are things that you can use to show that you are in a real or bona fide relationship, okay? Processing time for this is about 10 to 12 months at the first stage, which is USCIS, and then the Embassy and National Visa Center as 4 to 6 months for roughly 15 or 16 months maximum for the spouse visa. Again, a lot of things can change depending on your history. If you have parts of your history that you need to provide more clarification to immigration, that can come up at any point in the process. It's not just the first step showing your relationship or your intentions. When you get to the embassies have a whole lot of questions that are way different than USCIS. Okay, USCIS obviously is in the United States. The embassy is outside the United States. Embassies are very different. They do a lot of the same things as Department of Homeland Security or USCIS, but they ask very different things sometimes. So making sure that you know what they're asking and what they need is critical when you're doing these processes. Okay, so let me see here. Green card response. Okay, so there is the process for spouses currently in the United States. Okay, so currently in the United States, it's not called consular processing, but it is the green card process. It's called adjustment of status. So you're adjusting your status in the United States. You can do that, right? A lot of people enter the United States with either fiancé visa, tourist visa, some other work visa, or you enter without a visa. That's when things get a lot more complicated. It is technically possible to get a green card even if you have been living in the United States without authorization. It's a lot more challenging, but it is possible. There's different things that we can do to convince the government that you are eligible for this. And that process exists in the United States. So fiancé visa, okay. Green card for a spouse outside the United States, green card for the spouse inside the United States. Those are three different processes that we deal with regularly. A lot of similar information, but distinctly different depending on the history, okay? So let's see here. Let me go down for the questions again. All right, let me see. Okay, we talk about the bona fide relationship. Okay. So again, a lot of questions about existing processes that people have. Spouse green card application cases actively being reviewed. How long does it take to pass this stage of the process? That's $1 million question. Everything depends on what they're asking for, what the history is. A lot of this stuff, it seems easy. You go online, you fill out an application, but there's so much more to it because your history inside the United States has a direct impact on how quickly the government is going to process your request and whether you're going to have any problems with it. Okay, so that's kind of a loaded question that depends on a lot of things. Okay, please clearance letter again. Okay, yep, I already answered that question. So let me go down to new questions. Okay, what if you spend just 3 months in the United States with your spouse? What's the visa to get? If you're already married, you can't get a fiancé visa anymore. Okay, if you're already married, you're getting some sort of spouse visa, whether it's in the United States having your interview, or if you have to leave the country and go back to your home to do it. It depends on your overall immigration history, because there's certain things that invalidate you for doing it inside the United States, and you might need a waiver or something like that. But knowing that there are two distinctly separate processes for that is important for people to know. Let's see. I've been married for 14 years, but we don't live together no more because her mom, okay. We want to see, okay. So somebody who's been married for years and are going through the green card process, you have a ton of information to show your ongoing relationship, okay? They're definitely less strict the longer it is. So if you live apart after 14 years and you're still married, believe me, there's going to be plenty of information that you can show the government to convince the government that you really are together, even though you might temporarily be living separately for family life reasons. So that's not a deal killer. It's still possible to do. Would it be harder for someone from somewhere like Turkey to get approved? Theoretically, no, Max. It's exactly the same process. It just comes down to timing and how busy the embassies are. Embassies that have a ton of people apply might take a little bit longer, but they're better at it. Okay. So again, Turkey, I don't know how many people apply for these sorts of visas in Turkey. Theoretically, it's the same process. I've worked with Turkey. I don't know if I've done it on a fiancé visa. I've done it spouse visas. So it really depends on the country and what's going on. Everything's subject to change. I mean, politics comes in there. But yes, absolutely, it's possible to do. Okay. Um, okay. To do. I've been married to a husband for 3 years and want to bring him, but I recently. Oh, where'd that go? Okay. A new check came. 1 second here, guys. Please stand by. Okay. I've been married to my husband for 3 years. I want to bring him, but I recently changed my name. Will that affect my process? Well, it depends. I'm assuming you changed your last name. Um, Everything in immigration can be explained, especially if you have evidence of what has happened. So it's not a deal breaker necessarily because you change your name. Immigration might ask you why, and it might be awkward to answer. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe very good reasons. Kids, who knows? So it's not a deal breaker. It's still absolutely possible to show the government a bona fide relationship, even if you change your name. Um, Let me go down here. Let's see. We have a daughter together and yeah, okay. So living separately, separate households, it's not as abnormal as one would think. And even though the government is a little bit more critical of that, there's usually a very good reason for it. Children living, you know, in a different state, maybe the prior relationship. Spouse from first relationship has custody or partial custody. Well, yeah, you're gonna have to adapt to that. So that's not a deal breaker, okay? Um, okay, let's see what else we have. If you get married in the US on a tourist visa, what is the process to adjust your status if you want to stay in the US? Can you get approved that way? Um, it is possible, okay? The Biden administration is super duper strict, okay? Um, if you enter the United States and you overstay a visa, that's been historically the last year, the kiss of death, because they're so strict about it. It's still possible to do it. If you entered on a tourist visa, and technically it's not the visa that the government wants you to do, they want a spouse, they want you to do the spouse visa overseas, or they want you to do the fiancé visa. If you enter it as a tourist, it creates ripples down the line, okay? They could absolutely approve it, but I have family living overseas who later parts of the family were absolutely denied because of somebody's use of a tourist visa instead of the proper visa that the government wanted them to use. So it is possible to get approved and destroy the chances of your family of ever getting a green card in the United States. So it really depends, right? It is possible, but it's going to take some work. So I was going to say, let's see here quick, because I know that we're kind of getting toward the end of our time. Excuse me if I shut this a little bit. I'm looking, I had notes here that I was going to bust out, which is, this is, this isn't, this webinar that we have is just the first of many different opportunities for you guys to reach out to me to get more information, okay? Obviously, this is not exhaustive. I can't do everything here, but this is some basic information to tell you the differences. We're going to do follow-ups later. If you have any interest in any one of these three processes I mentioned, put the number one in the chat and hit enter. And we will reach out to you and we will give you information, email. If we need to do a phone call, we'll do whatever needs to be done so that you guys get the information you need in order to move forward with the process, okay? I will also say this is a good time for me to say that everyone attending the webinar today, we are offering a $200 off your process if you book with us by this Friday at 1 p.m., which is what time our office closes. So it's just a little thank you for being a part of this and to give back a little bit. So put a 1 on the chat if you have interest. And remember that we're giving this discount as long as you basically book by this Friday at 1 o'clock. that information, again, put one in the chat. We'll send it to you. We'll send you all the information about pricing, about timing, all that stuff. And then once you decide that that's something you want to do, then you hire me, okay? And then we help you with it, okay? So again, this information, I appreciate everyone who's joined us today. We will reach out to those who have indicated an interest in us reaching out to them. If you have follow-up questions, you can go to my website, marvinlawoffice.com. There's a ton of information on our YouTube channel. Videos galore. So if you haven't already checked us out, do that. Get the information. Absolutely reach out to us if you know you want to do it. I saw some people saying, heck yeah, let's do this. You can contact us directly, and we would love to help you start the process as soon as possible. Again, questions later on. If I didn't get your questions, I apologize. You can always reach out to us with the questions. If in the appointment where you hire us, I sit there with you and I tell you anything you need to know, okay? We're not looking to hide the ball here. We're looking to help people make informed decisions on about how best to move forward for their family. So, Orden, I'm here for you guys. So please let me know. Let me see here. I'm looking at other things people are asking. So yeah, so if you have interest, either one in the chat, which a lot of people have, or reach out to us, our website, marvinlawoffice.com. So it's a little bit challenging doing links in this chat thing, but we can provide that information to you. All that stuff is readily available if you reach out to us. We also have the phone number that we can list on the chat. Lilibeth, if you could put that number in the chat. I'm not sure which number we want to prioritize for these good people. But we do have a number, and it's slowly coming. I don't know. Maybe the email is the best way to do it. So let me see here. Let me do this phone number. Okay, this is okay, 805 3435. Okay, and that's area code 616. Okay, sometimes, yeah, 805-3435. So that's a phone number that comes right to my office. If you want questions, again, thank you everyone for joining us. Stand by for future webinars for all sorts of different things. But thank you so much for joining us today and for your wonderful questions. Let us know how we can help you. I would love to help you succeed and bring your family to the United States to be with you. So thank you and have a wonderful day.